A new race in the Kender, these mischievous, curious characters who have this insatiable drive for exploration and wonder. You've also got explorations of the Knights of Solamnia, this group of valorous knights that you can be a part of as a new background. You can also join the Mages of High Sorcery, who are a group of mysterious magic users that have their own legendary methods of joining. I think anybody who, grew up with that incredible Keith Parkinson image of Lord Soth's charms is going to—
iconic.
Exactly. It was on my desktop for the majority of the time that we were working on this.
All I can say about the art is that it is badass. The standard cover came about really organically. It was, this is a movie poster and we're showing all of the villains. The alt cover, our germ of the idea was always there that it was going to be Soth, and his symbol of the black rose were going to be the focus of the alt cover. It was really formulated to work with the artist that we chose, Chase Stone. He does this beautiful metal work. That was kind of a decision that was already made for us, practically.
Along with that, we've got a host of new feats to help you further immerse yourselves in being a member of perhaps the Knights of Solamnia or the Mages of High Sorcery, but also to indulge in some of the other wonders of this setting. So we had an exciting opportunity when we were putting together these products to work with world-renowned board game designers Rob Davio and Stephen Baker, and they were two of the designers that were behind Dragonlance Warriors of Krynn, the board game experience that supplements our adventure. So Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen does something that we haven't explored before in 5th edition, and that's offering a game experience that cooperates and coordinates with the role-playing experience in the form of Dragonlance Warriors of Krynn. This is a whole board game that's not necessary for you to play the adventure, but offers you a unique mass battle experience that meshes in and out of the larger adventure.
Shadow of the Dragon Queen and the Dragonlance Deluxe Edition will soon be upon us. You can check D&D Beyond for release details. D&D is for everyone around the world. That's why we're delighted that new D&D starter products will be coming to Japan later this year. Let's take a look at a brand new D&D trailer for our Japanese players.
頑張れ。もう少しで村に着くぞ。
マジもう疲れた。静かに。気配がするわ。今にも何か出てきそうな。
おいおいおいおい。一体どうなってんだよ。
ダンジョンズ&ドラゴンズの世界へようこそ。
誰の声だよ。
ダンジョンマスター。
ダンジョンマスター。
燃え盛る炎の中からゾンビが3体出現。
これはちょっと予想外ね。
戦うか。
戦うって相手はゾンビだよ。
ダイスを取り出して。自分が誰かを思い出してください。
俺は勇敢なファイター。
私はレンジャー。私はウィザード。ここは私に任せて。まさかのクリティカルヒット。これで倒せそう。
敵を撃破しました。護衛は成功です。
テーブルトーク RPG すっかりキャラになりきっちゃったよ。さて次の冒険に進もうか。
その格好どうした？
かっこいいです。
世界で一番遊ばれている TRPG ダンジョンズ&ドラゴンズ。
In 2022, Dungeons & Dragons has gone to the Netherdeep, to Radiant Adventures, to Wild Space, and to War. And now, for the first time ever, We're going to peel back the curtain on an entire year ahead of us. Let's give you a taste of all the major releases coming to Dungeons & Dragons in 2023.
I feel like I can't even pick a favorite. We start the year with Keys from the Golden Vault, a D&D anthology with heists at the center of each tale. Next, Bigby Presents Glory of the Giants provides the definitive tome of giant gameplay in D&D. After that, the Phandelver campaign is a classic adventure that expands Lost Mines of Phandelver into a full campaign with many surprises in store. Later in the year, the Book of Many Things uses the legendary Deck of Many Things to explore a host of new options for dungeon masters and players. And finally, we end the year with a return to Planescape. This campaign collection includes everything you need to explore Sigil and the multiverse beyond.
Up next, Magic the Gathering has some epic things brewing.
We've got some huge news, especially for those fans who have been with us from the very beginning all those years ago. Next, we're taking a look at Dominaria Remastered. This special limited print run set contains cards from 27 previously released sets located either in Dominaria or from ancillary sets featuring Dominaria-themed cards. It really is a culmination of everything Magic has done on this plane in the past 30 years, and it will be fully draftable. You will be able to recreate that feeling of early Magic sets with many familiar classic draft archetypes that longtime fans are gonna love revisiting. There will be draft and collector boosters, which will include alternate versions of popular cards, as well as borderless art and retro frames. Take a look at Force of Will and Arborea. Oh man, I can't wait to collect these.
And now it's time for the Magic main event. We're going to get a look at the full slate of main sets that will be coming out from the rest of this year through 2023. There's a whole lot of news to cover. Jimmy, tell us about these exciting sets.
All right, let's start at the very center of the multiverse, Magic's home. Dominaria United is going to be the next big set release coming your way, and no better place to celebrate the 30th anniversary than where it all began. This set really ramps up the biggest storyline in Magic's history, the Phyrexian Arc. Magic has never done a multi-set storyline quite like this before. The iconic and beautiful plane of Dominaria is under duress. War is on the horizon, and it's becoming clear that the Phyrexians we've been seeing from across the multiverse are setting into motion something much more sinister. Vorinclex, the green-aligned Praetor, was last seen on Kaldheim, stealing a sample of the godly and mysterious Tyrite. The blue Praetor, Jin Gitaxis, not only stole the reality chip from Kamigawa, but managed to complete the very first Planeswalker with Tamio. Urabrask, the red Praetor, snuck his way into New Capenna in order to study the effects of Halo and see if it might have some way of standing up against the growing Phyrexian army. Dominaria has long theorized that it would be next in the Phyrexians' plans, but the heroes truly have no idea just how far the war has progressed. Tamio isn't the only Planeswalker hidden among them that has Phyrexian oil coursing through their veins. And Dominaria United is right around the corner in September. And stick around, because after the presentation, there will be the debut of Dominaria United. I'll show off card previews and mechanics, and we'll have a special teaser video to show at the end. So whether you're new or returning to Magic, this is where the epic journey of the Phyrexian Arc truly begins, and you definitely don't want to miss it.
So we've spoken about the past with Magic's 30th anniversary and everything up to the present, including Dominaria United. Only thing left is the future. Jimmy, what's coming up for Magic next year?
All right, hot on the heels of Dominaria United, the next chapter of the Phyrexian Arc will unfold as we travel back in time to follow the most famous brothers in the multiverse, Urza and Mishra in the Brothers' War. In this set that straddles both the present and past of Dominaria, we'll get a closer look at the infamous conflict that caused the rift between these two artificers. And you know what that means? Plenty of artifacts. And we're not talking about spectacles and sunglasses. We're talking giant mechs and colossal war machines. We can't say too much just yet, but one thing I will say is that the fate of the future might be rooted in the past. Up next in our storyline, our villains grow ever stronger in Phyrexia. All will be one. For the first time in over 10 years, we revisit the terrifying and beautiful plane of New Phyrexia as Elish Norn inches ever closer in her plan to conquer the multiverse. Things look grim. Terror and oil oozes from every corner of the plane as we experience the fear and joy of becoming one. Horror fans, you won't be disappointed. And finally, March of the Machine, the dramatic conclusion of the Phyrexian arc. The entire multiverse rallies together for one epic climactic battle. But what will be left when the dust settles? Did we survive? We'll find out where we stand after that epic 4-part arc in March of the Machine, The Aftermath. The very fabric of the multiverse has fundamentally changed, and Aftermath serves as an epilogue by tying up some loose ends and starting new beginnings. After the conclusion of the Phyrexian arc, Wilds of Eldraine returns us to the fan-favorite plane. But in this set, we're taken away from the cities and castles and into Eldraine's wilds, where enchantments abound, and where you might even recognize inspiration from even more classic fairy tales. And finally, we close out 2023 by going on a thrilling adventure. We'll dive into the lost caverns of Ixalan. But things have changed since the powerful artifact of the Immortal Sun disappeared. For this set, we're spelunking for buried treasure. And there just might be some dinosaurs.
Thanks so much for taking us through these upcoming set releases, Jimmy. Well, that just about wraps up Wizards Presents 2022. We have covered so much ground today. Exciting new titles, expansions, books, and experiences. Let's remind our fans what's coming out for Wizards of the Coast in the coming years.
Yes, the next version of D&D, the release of Spelljammer, a movie, and so many books.
Magic is going to be headed to Middle-earth and the universe of Doctor Who. It'll also celebrate its 30th anniversary with crazy throwback releases and a next-level Magic fan event of unprecedented scale. Then, Magic will kick off the largest story in its history, the Phyrexian arc. Can't wait.
And that isn't everything, just the highlights. Follow us on social media for even more announcements. We're all very excited to see what the next year brings for our two favorite tabletop and digital games. I want to thank Ginny D, Jimmy Wong, and all of you for tuning in. I'm Cindy Goodman, and now is the Dominaria United debut.
Hello, Magic fans, and welcome. I'm Jimmy Wong, and it's time to talk about Dominaria United. Today, we're going to be learning more about what went into revisiting Magic's very first plane, checking out the set's mechanics, and of course, getting a first look at a ton of brand new cards. Now, if you dropped in earlier this week for our video covering the history, art, and world building of Dominaria United, you might already know a bit of what to expect. But if you weren't able to make it, here's a quick recap. But be sure to check out the whole thing once we're done here today.
As Magic the Gathering's first setting, Dominaria kind of establishes the standard by which all other world building is measured.
This is obviously a place that's steeped in legend, has so much history. It's just so inspiring and so hopeful. Everyone on this plane fully understands the gravity.
One of the things we wanted to see in this set was various cultures helping each other out, especially as they're faced with this new threat.
So you're going to see people teaming up, and it's all hands on deck.
That if this threat makes it past Dominaria, it's bad news for everybody in the entire multiverse.
And before we jump into the new stuff, check out this announcement we made earlier about the Lost Legends promotion.
We're excited to bring you the story of Magic's Lost Legends.
We found these boxes of the original Legends in a warehouse, and we wanted to get them out into the world for our players to enjoy.
It is the perfect set to take cards from 1994 and actually put them into packs.
Holding the original is really cool, and it makes me feel like I'm 13 again.
This has stood the test of time and is still played today and is still something that people cherish.
And now we get to share them with you.
As you can see, there's a ton of exciting stuff in the works for this set. So let's hear from some special guests who can tell us a little more about just what went into crafting cards and gameplay that bring the legendary world of Dominaria United to life.
We're heading back to Dominaria because of course we are. It's our 30th anniversary. Dominaria is our home plane. It's quintessential fantasy, and in a lot of ways, it is quintessential magic. This plane is full of diversity. This plane is absolutely beautiful, and it has a very long, storied history in the Magic multiverse.
It has this huge history stretching back to the very beginning of the game. all these different themes over the years are available for us to draw upon and sort of call back to.
There's been so much that's happened here. We really started off in Dominaria, and we've come back again and again to revisit this plane.
As we're making Dominaria United, we got to pull from all of the fan favorite things from around Magic history and put them into a set.
We have all the denizens of Dominaria putting aside their differences and teaming up in the face of a mutual foe. I just loved coming up with who would make sense to come back for the second invasion of Dominaria.
It brings that great fusion that I've loved of nostalgia with current day, right? You see the old stuff and you see them in an updated new form. And that is the beauty of Dominaria, is that old and the new together, and no matter what kind of player you are, you will love it.
As Magic's first plane and the setting for literally dozens of sets that followed, Dominaria is home to some of Magic's most beloved and iconic characters. Let's learn more about these fan favorites and how the team approached them for Dominaria United.
So Dominaria is a plane full of legends, legendary creatures, legendary planeswalkers. And now we have a Johnny, we're gonna see Karn, we're gonna see Jaya and Joyra, and just so many amazing faces where if you have been following along with Magic for a while, you're definitely gonna see some familiar faces. Liliana is also nearby, so we're gonna get to see what's going on with Liliana. Why is she here?
So one of the cool things about Dominaria is when we go back, we kind of pick some choice cards to reprint back into Standard. With Liliana, we wanted to show that, yeah, she's been here. She's been on Dominaria for a long time. Well, how about we take her Innistrad version, her most iconic version of the character, and show, oh yeah, she's here on Dominaria too, in her most iconic form.
Right, definitely the most powerful Liliana card we've ever made.
By a long shot. And that ultimate is just backbreaking, right? You ultimate it and they separate the permanents into two piles, and then disaster strikes from there. Do not sleep on this card. I don't know how you could. It's so powerful.
So if you've been following Magic for a long time, you're very familiar with the Raven Man, and we're bringing back the Raven Man for this set.
And it's cool we get to bring this old character players love from flavor text into a current setting. And so as we're making Dominaria United, we got to pull from all of the fan favorite things from around Magic history and put them into a set. Pretty cool.
So Squee is a goblin. He was the cabin boy on board the skyship Weatherlight, and he was super annoying. He was this character who was always getting into trouble, but somehow he never got killed, even though he was constantly in horrible danger. The story writers wrote that into the story, that he had been transformed by Phyrexian science into an immortal that just kept healing whenever he died.
So one thing we see on Squee's card that's really cool is he's holding his toy, right? He's got this thing called a Squeeze toy. He picked it up a long time ago when he was traveling the planes. And just like how he brought it all the way with him and has it now in Dominaria, every character we visit has a bit of themselves that they've brought to Dominaria with them. You know, we look at Jorah, a character who helped command the Weatherlight. She's still here, she's still kicking.
She's one of the greatest genius artificers of Dominarian history, and we really see that reflected in the card mechanic here, where she's sort of building up more and more knowledge and then building more and more powerful artifacts as the game goes on.
Zur, Eternal Schemer.
Reading through the old novels, it was clear that, like, somewhere in the background of all the action, Zur was trying to become immortal. Everyone kind of thought that was crazy, but look at how many people have become immortal in Dominaria. It just happens sometimes. We're not even going to explain how Zur became immortal. We just know it happened.
To see the through line from the old Zur card to this one, right? The original searched your deck for enchantments, put them into play. This new one also deals with enchantments, but it has a little twist, right? It animates your enchantments, which is technology that existed at the time but wasn't used super heavily, and we've seen more and more and more as time has gone on. So it's cool that we get to kind of take this old card, make a new version of it, and use a bit of cool new design technology to bring it to life.
So for Dominaria United, one of my responsibilities on play design was play testing for Standard and Limited. The end goal is just make a really fun Standard environment. So one of the cards we play tested was Solkanar, and I remember back, you know, when I was younger, this card was a reprint in the Time Spiral bonus sheet, and I remember playing this card like quite a bit in Limited specifically. Like I think I top 8'd a PTQ or something with this card. So one inspiration for this Solkanar was the card Demonic Pact, which is an enchantment that has 3 really cool abilities. You do one every turn, and then at the end of the 3 abilities, you lose the game. So this is a take on Demonic Pact. It has 3 like really cool, powerful abilities, and then when you're done using these 3 abilities, you have to give the card away to your opponent. One of the problems we faced with Solkanar was that the game was ending before we gave it to the opponent. We had to like really be careful with the abilities we chose, because if you make them too powerful, then the game's gonna end before the opponent gets the Solkanar. And if you make them too weak, then maybe nobody's gonna play the cards.
We heard about Lord of Windgrace all the way back in the day in some old novels, and then really showed up in earnest in the Invasion block.
In the storyline, Lord Windgrace was a fierce foe of the Phyrexians. He gave his life to save the multiverse, but he invested some of his soul into the land of Urborg, his homeland, to return in the hour of need, in Urborg's hour of need. Well, the Phyrexians are back, and so Windgrace's avatar has risen back up and is going to do battle against the Phyrexians one more time.
And I think it's really cool that this card too keys off of lands, right? Just like the Commander card did, right? So we created this identity for this old character. Dominaria, riffing on that history yet again, looks at this Commander card and says, oh, he's gonna do stuff with lands this time around, which feels so fitting for Windgrace, I mean, given what he does.
It's good to have a mechanical through line between different incarnations of the same character so that everything feels cohesive.
Booster Fun is something that we do at Magic to really make the opening experience even more exciting than it already is. Everybody loves to open their booster packs, but we really want to give these extra special moments visually different enough from the rest of the cards to like give that little extra sauce. And we work really hard with all of the people that make the game to have those moments be really strongly themed to the setting. We really wanted to get at the reverence and the historic aspect of returning to this plane, which is like a favorite place for the fans and a favorite place for the story, is we realized that stained glass art was the way to go because it had this reverence, this epic, holy luminosity that really gave us a lot of fun space to make some beautiful pieces of art. And what really clicked for us is when we imagined what is the chapel where this piece of stained glass would live. We used this treatment to highlight some of the legendary, really important creatures like Raf Capuchin. And in the Solkanar piece, not only do you have this like hulking monster, you can look in the background and you see these like repeating almost fractals that she's created out of like organic tree shapes. Daniel did such an amazing job on Poor Squee. It's such a beautiful piece. Gave a lot of pathos to this beloved character. Gave him his little moment with his little buddy on a hill of skulls.
So in order to help you cast some of these powerful multicolor legendary creatures, we've included some of the pain lands. These are lands that you can tap them for colorless mana, or you can tap them for one of two colors, but you will take damage when you do that. So many of the names refer to specific locations in Dominaria.
Caves of Koilos, one of those iconic locations in Magic. The kickstarted into the whole Brothers War.
Right.
Can't go on Mirrodin. You can't put that in Ravnica. It's got to be right here. And we've wanted to use pain lands a lot over the past several years, but they just can't go on a lot of worlds. You know, you can't put these cards on any other plane. So going back to Dominaria was just the perfect time to bring them back. It brings that nostalgia back, right? When you're sleeving up your standard deck and it has 4 copies of Yavimaya Coast in it, you're like, I remember doing this when I was playing Blue-Green Madness back in 2003. I played 4 copies of Yavimaya Coast. And again, I can sleeve them up and have that nostalgia, but that lenticular design comes into play again, right? Where a newer player is just gonna see, sweet, some man fixing dual lands, love it, put it in my deck.
Of course, one of the best parts of a world chock full of legendary creatures is that it opens up all sorts of fresh options for your commander decks. Let's take a look at what the Dominaria United Commander lineup has to offer. Check out some cards you won't find in the main set, and hear from some of the designers and playtesters about how these cards got made.
Jared is the star of the Magic the Gathering comic book series from the mid-90s, and we never made a card for him before. So I was like, oh, this would be so cool. We should make a Jared Carthalion card.
And so we saw him on flavor text in Modern Horizons 1, I think, right? That was his first intro into actual, like, paper Magic. Right. And then we worked on Commander Legends, we made a card for him. And then this time around in Dominaria, he's graduated all the way up to show up in a main set with this Commander deck face card.
In the storyline, once Jared mastered all 5 colors of Magic, his Planeswalker spark ignited and he became a powerful Planeswalker back in the pre-mending era when Planeswalkers bestrode the multiverse like gods. Jared is still around. He survived the Planeswalker war that happened, and he's helping out the Coalition. He's sort of a secret agent and rescuing people who are in dangerous situations and such like that. You kind of tell he's part of the Coalition because he has all 5 colors of mana in his mana cost, and he's working with the Kavu.
The thing that's cool to me is it's not just legendary creatures. Dominaria and Magic in general has so many cool legendary objects around the history that Dihada plays not just with your legendary creatures, but you want to look at every legendary artifact you can find. My favorite when I was playtesting the deck was looking for all the legendary lands. You're like, hey, those actually are really good with Dihada. You can find them with her and do all kinds of cool stuff. So it makes you care about legendary in particular. And then that I thought was a fun little twist on something that feels a lot different from other cards we've done in the past. So you'll notice on both these Planeswalkers, Jared and Dihada, they have ways to help make sure the game goes forward, right? Either they're building up to this huge ultimate, which will probably win you the game, or they're putting counters on creatures, helping your stuff attack, stuff that just makes the game move forward.
One of the things I always like to imagine is when the next set comes out, which cards are people going to get excited to add to their deck? Like when the next 5-color card is printed, everyone's going to look at it. Does this go with Jared? When the next legendary creature is printed, does this go in my Dihada deck? I just love creating these themes that can help players to get excited about what we're going to release in the future.
So I've been playing Magic for about 25 years. And I remember when I first started seeing all these just legends with no abilities, vanilla legends, and never really understood why they were so cool, but everyone was like, oh yeah, this Jasmine Boreal's awesome. So flash forward to Dominaria United, and we're doing these new box toppers of all these old legends reinterpreted, and they were going to be, one in every box, a pretty unique thing for booster boxes. We haven't really done something like this before. So we have Stang Echo Warrior. It's a 2 red-green for a legendary creature human warrior, and it's a 3/4. It was important that Stang Twin made a copy of himself, made a new Stang, because that was reminiscent of the old Stang. But we had to find a new thing for it to do that was just kind of unique and gave it a deck building hook. So one of the things that sounded cool was auras and equipment, because 1, it's pretty fun to build around, and 2, in red-green, you don't often get the auras and equipment build around, so it gave something unique for a new color combination to do in Commander. Here is Savitri Dragon Master, 2 UB for a Planeswalker, Savitri. There are not even really that many blue-black dragon cards in Magic, so if you are building this deck, you are, really doing something special here. The card is pretty cool. It does have the qualities of a commander. It's a super special character. So in the end, we thought, hey, it will be cool, and also Magic's going to be around for a very long time. We will print more blue and black dragons.
One of the most exciting things for me about Dominaria United, there's so much cool stuff, but I love these legends that are on the top of every box. It's so cool because it brings back all these old characters from Legends that we get to see again in new forms. And if you were played back in the day or you're a student of Magic lore, you look at this card and it is a piece of Magic history, a through line from Legends all the way to today.
Now, getting back to the cards you'll seeing in the main set. Well, let's just say heroes aren't the only ones making history on Dominaria. The plane has its share of old enemies, and once again, there's something sinister bubbling up behind the scenes. Once, Dominaria was able to thwart an invasion by the mechanical horrors known as the Phyrexians. But now, Phyrexia has returned, with their sights set on making the plane and everything in it complete. Let's find out more about what they have in mind for Dominaria and the rest of the multiverse.
Back on Dominaria, a very long time ago, the Phyrexians were able to utilize essentially a portal to come through, and they really wreaked havoc. And as we open our story, Karn is on Dominaria because he truly believes that the Phyrexians have come back, but he doesn't have any proof. So we start off with Karn looking for that proof, and boy oh boy, does he find it pretty immediately. So Karn quickly finds freaking Sheoldred, which is terrifying. Sheoldred not only controls those around her that have also been completed, but can come apart into tiny little pieces and just crawl all over you like spiders. There's nothing more horrifying.
The Sheoldred card is a pretty special moment in the set because it's in a lot of ways the nexus of a lot of bad feeling and a lot of evil. What Joe did with his composition, he really nailed it with both this kind of poisonous color palette, which really is unsettling, and with these kind of shadowy figures that he has in the front, just really giving her this moment to revel in her evilness.
So after Karn meets up with Sheoldred and attempts to defeat her, she's able to escape. Thankfully, Ajani comes to the rescue, and they are able to travel to where there are peace talks happening in Dominaria and warn the leaders that, hey, there's some Phyrexians here and we need to watch out. But of course, with Phyrexians come Phyrexian sleeper agents, and you don't know who you can trust. Which takes us to Banalish Sleeper. So Dominaria is a beautiful plane. It's really accented by all this stained glass. It has these airy blues, these pastoral greens, but all of a sudden, you don't know who you can trust. These sleeper agents could be anywhere, but there are also very obvious in-your-face examples of this. And with that, that takes us to Defiler of Dreams. So now our planeswalkers are faced with not only sleeper agents, but outright Phyrexians and Sheoldred herself. So we're gonna get to see our planeswalkers go up against the Phyrexians and really try to wipe them out before they have the chance to potentially make it off of Dominaria. I mean, the whole multiverse is at stake here.
Dominaria's long legacy means it's also where players have first been introduced to some of the game's most tried and true mechanics.
The domain mechanic represents the power of unifying all 5 colors of Magic together against the Phyrexians. Dominaria's diversity and the broad base of its coalition was the key to victory against the Phyrexians in the first invasion.
It really helps make this a return to an invasion, to bring back an invasion mechanic. And now it's back in its rightful home in Dominaria with the ability word domain, throwing back to what we played in Invasion.
Ability words are an example of a design technology innovation that hadn't been invented yet when the original Invasion block was made.
So kicker, it might be the best mechanic ever. It's so simple, everybody can understand that I get something, I pay this much, or I can pay more and I get this much better. Now the effect that that has on a game of Magic is huge because kicker gives you the ability to play both early and late, mid-game and late. And that to me increases the quality of the games that you play, which goes beyond just how good the card is individually. The other thing you'll hear shorthand a lot is, hey, there's a new mechanic. That's a variant of kicker, right? It looks like kicker because kicker is the fundamental core of pay a little or pay a lot and have the effect scale. And any set with kicker, I'm in. Archangel of Wrath, 2 white for a 3/4 creature angel at rare with flying and lifelink, but it also has kicker for black and or red. So you could pay 6 mana, do 2 damage spread out as you choose, and have a 3/4 flying lifelink left over?
I mean,
is this card for real?
This card seems totally insane. So, I mean, just the baseline, right, of a 4 mana 3/4 flying lifelinker. I'm already in, but of course, now you also have that flexibility of you can play this in your white-black deck or your white-red deck. I mean, you can just play this in your white deck, right? Now, keep in mind, this also has lifelink, and this is the creature doing the damage. So what that means is when you deal 2 damage to something, you're also gaining the 2 life.
That's insane, yeah.
It's a giant life-linking flyer that can potentially kill 2 things and gain you 4 life.
Wow.
Read Ahead is a new ability found on Saga cards. Rather than always entering with a single lore counter starting on Chapter 1, Sagas with Read Ahead can start on any chapter you like. You can have the Phasing of Zhalfir enter with 1, 2, or 3 lore counters on it. The corresponding chapter ability will trigger, and earlier ones won't. And after the story is done and the last chapter ability is finished, you sacrifice the saga just like before.
All right, so we're getting sagas back in this set. Now, there's going to be a little bit of a twist for this one, but what has your experience been with sagas so far?
Yeah, sagas are near the top of the list of my favorite card type.
Yeah.
You know, as a primarily limited player, they play out beautifully. They play out kind of like how a planeswalker would, but they have an endpoint on them, so you can kind of plan around it. But also, they tell a story, right? And to me, they're one of the most expressive type of Magic cards where they hit that core thing where you get it. You know, you see it and you go, that's neat. I understand what story's being told, even if it's just a little mini story throughout the chapters of a saga. Okay, now I get why skipping ahead might sometimes be a good thing to do.
Right, because this just gives you that flexibility, right?
Yeah, that's huge.
And that's got to be huge. And with this, I mean, there's so many different applications here.
This is a weird card because I could see playing this and winning the game by the time the second chapter goes. Like, oh, I'll take chapter 1, phase your thing out, hit you, phase your other thing out, kill you.
Right.
Even though chapter 3 is going to blow up the world.
Right. I mean, you can use this as a way to sweep the board, but again, if you feel like you have enough of a board presence, you can use this to save your best creatures, right? You can play this, phase out your 2 best creatures, then you sweep the board, your 2 best creatures come back, and they just have a bunch of tutus.
Feels like the type of card that situationally is going to be amazing.
Enlist. Enlist is an attack-oriented triggered ability. Whenever a creature with Enlist attacks, you may tap another creature you control to add its power to the attacking creature until end of turn. But there are some rules. The creature you enlist can't also be attacking, and it can't have summoning sickness, meaning it can't have just come under your control this turn. Enlist will help even the smallest creatures contribute on offense. This fight needs everyone, so stand united.
Guardian of New Benalia. So this is 1 and a white for a 2/2 rare human soldier with Enlist. This looks like a pain. I do not want to play against this card in any format.
Right, and you know, this is another take on kind of the very hard to deal with sticky white creature.
Yes.
That's going to see a lot of play in these constructed formats, right? So, you know, you can just ensure that you get those perfect curve starts. You can go 1-drop, Guardian, attack, Enlist. Oh, you want to block? Indestructible, and I get to set up my future draws. This card seems incredible.
This is really impressive, and I'm scared of it. And, you know, there has been a push for white to be able to not draw extra cards necessarily, but augment its draw step.
Right.
This keeps you, Scry 2 is very powerful, keeps you just drawing what you need to keep that pressure on, and you can't get rid of the thing.
Really excited to see how this pans out because this is going to be a staple, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what the idea was behind showing Paul and I this card, because this is the type of thing we have nightmares about, but sure, it plays.
It's going to be something I'm going to be losing to a lot. So we've seen a lot of these new mechanics. Marshall, what do you think about the mechanics that you've seen today and how it compares to Dominaria?
Well, first thing that stands out, of course, are the core mechanics that we've seen. We talked about Kicker, talked about that, love it, super excited for it. Sagas we don't always get.
Right.
And anytime we do, I automatically up my bar for my expectations, so I've done that. And when I see different colored mana symbols come up on these type of really powerful cards like we saw with that Angel, I'm in. Right now I'm thinking I can make the mana work too, and that's kind of the last ingredient for me. So expectations are about as high as I can get. Yeah, so who here brought the packs so we can...
Yeah, can we
I
crack
was
some
told
packs maybe?
Maybe booster draft? No?
As you can see, there's a lot to look forward to with Magic returning to where it all began. You can pre-order Dominaria United online or at your local game store. And of course, you'll be able to find it at pre-releases starting September 2nd and available everywhere starting September 9th. That just about wraps things up for us, but before you go, apparently there's a few last things players need to know about this latest Phyrexian threat.
It is time for Dominaria to finally become whole. I will stitch perfection into the flesh of this land.